The letter did not look special at first. It arrived in a simple white envelope, mixed in with coupons and bills at a California newspaper office. The clerk sorted the mail like always, tapping the stack straight with her hand. She almost missed it. Then she noticed the handwriting on the front. It leaned sharply to one side, like someone writing in a hurry. No return address, just the name of the paper and the city written in dark blue ink. When the editor opened it, a strange, heavy feeling settled over the room. Inside was a letter, a symbol, and a sheet of paper filled with tiny shapes and signs instead of normal words. Circles, triangles, backward letters, strange patterns. It looked like a secret language. The writer said he was the person behind a string of attacks that had already shaken nearby towns. He said his name was Zodiac. He wrote that this was his cipher and dared the world to solve it. He also wrote something that made everyone in that room stop breathing for a second. He claimed that if the code was not printed in the newspaper, more people would be in danger. The editor read it once. Then again, the room buzzed with fear. They called the police. Detectives arrived quickly, reading the letter with tight jaws and narrowed eyes. They knew the city had already seen strange, frightening attacks. Now, someone was claiming them. Someone who wanted attention. Someone who wrote as if hurting people was a game. The letter, the symbol, the code, it felt like a bomb made of paper and ink. That was the highest point of the story, the part where all the fear and mystery rose to the top. The city wanted answers. The police wanted to stop whoever this was. The newspapers worried. If they printed the code, were they helping him? If they didn't, were they putting more people at risk? No one knew yet that the name Zodiac would become one of the most famous unsolved cases in American history. No one knew that the letters and codes would continue for years. No one knew that, even decades later, people would still ask the same question. Why was he never caught? For now, all they had was a letter on the table, the strange wheels and lines of mysterious code, and a decision that could change everything. The editor finally said in a quiet voice, "If we publish this, people will be afraid." A detective answered, "They're already afraid. But if someone out there can solve this, maybe they can help us." The letter sat between them. The code seemed to stare back. That is a cliffhanger, a city waiting, a code staring, a name, Zodiac, floating like smoke above everything. To understand how it got this far, we have to go back to quieter days, before the letters arrived, before the symbol was known, when the first strange things began, before the name, Zodiac, appeared in the paper. There were nights that started like any other in Northern California. Couples sat in parked cars near lakes and quiet roads, talking about school, about work, about the future. Teenagers planned dates. Parents went bowling. People did normal things because they believed the night would behave itself. Then slowly the nights changed. On certain evenings, police received calls about attacks in remote spots. In some cases, people who had been out in their cars or near lonely roads never made a home. Patrol cars rushed to scenes marked by confusion and sirens. The reports were filled with fear and broken details. The officers did not always see a pattern right away. Different places, different couples, different times. But the feeling was the same. Someone had turned quiet places into scenes of terror. The detectives did what they always did. They took notes, measured distances, and recorded times. They tried to understand if this was a robbery, a personal grudge, or something else. At first, there were more questions than answers. Witnesses had only small, shaky memories. Headlights in the dark. Footsteps. A voice saying a few words. A car speeding away. The communities around them reacted. People started staying home more at night. Parents warned their kids about lonely roads and private parking spots. A soft layer of worry settled over towns that used to feel safe. But without a clear suspect, the police struggled to explain what was going on. Then came the first letter. It didn't only go to one paper. Copies of similar letters were sent to different newspapers in the area, as if the writer wanted to make sure someone would listen. In each letter, the writer claimed responsibility for earlier attacks. He described enough details that detectives believed he at least knew the scenes. He suggested he would hurt more people if the papers ignored him. He had given himself a name, Zodiac. Detectives now knew they weren't dealing with separate cases. They were facing one person who won a spotlight, who seemed to enjoy playing with fear. The city was not just facing crimes. It was facing a story being told by the criminal himself. The most unusual part was the code. The cipher sheet was covered in symbols arranged into neat rows. Some looked like letters, others like shapes. There were circles with crosses, triangles, squares, strange marks. It was like someone had invented a new alphabet just for this message. At the top of one of the letters, the writer bragged that if people could crack the code, they would know who I am or what he was thinking. The police could not ignore this. The newspapers, under pressure from both the public and the police, decided to publish the code. They hoped someone, somewhere, would recognize the pattern. They printed it on the front page, right next to headlines about local politics and sports. Overnight, thousands of people saw it. Some were terrified. Others were fascinated. Many were both. Across the state, teachers, office workers, students, and hobby code breakers sat at kitchen tables with pencils and paper, trying to crack the code. Some drew grids. Others counted how many times each symbol appeared. They circled patterns. They guessed and crossed out and guessed again. One couple, a school teacher and his wife, spent evenings working together at their kitchen table. They treated it like a puzzle, something that needed patience instead of panic. They compared the symbols to common letters and phrases in English. They thought about how someone might hide a message and still want it to be solvable. Little by little, they saw a pattern. They realized the code was not a fancy, unbreakable thing from a spy movie. It was a substitution cipher. Each strange symbol stood in for a normal letter. Still, it was hard work. The man and his wife kept at it until finally, word began to appear. When they read what the message said, they felt a chill. The decoded text did not reveal a simple name like John Smith or Bill. It did not give a neat address or a phone number. Instead, it revealed sentences about enjoying hurting people, about power, about wanting attention and fear. It also contained spelling errors and strange phrases, like someone who wanted to sound smart but cared more about being frightening. The code gave a voice to the person calling himself Zodiac. The couple contacted the police and the newspaper right away. Detectives confirmed that the solution made sense. The pattern worked. The code was real. The message was real. The Zodiac was real. But there was a problem. Even with the code solved, the police still did not know who he was. The cipher had not given them a direct identity. No full name. No address. Just dark ideas and a symbol, a circle with a cross through it, like the sight of a gun or a strange target. The symbols started showing up on later letters, like a signature. The letters kept coming. Some were mailed to newspapers, some to police, some to other places. Each one was a mix of bragging, threats, and puzzles. Some letters had pieces of information that only the attacker could have known. Others mocked the police, saying they would never catch him. The writer seemed to enjoy making everyone feel small. Each new letter forced detectives to shift gears. They had to answer reporters' questions and calm the public, while also studying every word for hidden clues. They looked at postmarks to see where the letters were mailed. They studied the handwriting, hoping it might match something in old files. They checked each envelope for fingerprints and fibers. They listened to experts on codes and tried to see if a pattern in the ciphers could point to a certain kind of job or education. Sometimes they thought they were close. A man would seem suspicious. His schedule matched certain dates. Maybe he lived near several crime scenes. Maybe someone said he talked about the case too much. Detectives would follow him, interview him, check his background. They would wonder, could this be the Zodiac? Then the test results would come back. The DNA didn't match. The handwriting didn't match. The man would have a strong alibi. Or the evidence just wouldn't be strong enough for a case. The investigators had to let him go. Over and over this happened. High moments, a new clue, a strong lead, a promising suspect. Low moments, dead ends, mismatched evidence. Another letter that seemed to appear just when hope was fading, as if the writer was playing with everyone's emotions. The public watched all of this with a mix of anger and fear. Parents kept kids inside more at night. People installed extra locks. Some refused to go out at all after dark. Others crowded around radios and TVs whenever there was a news update, hoping to hear that the Zodiac had finally been caught. But the person behind the symbol stayed in the shadows. As the months turned into years, the file on the Zodiac case grew thicker. It contained photos, reports, early letters, decoded ciphers, and long lists of potential suspects. Detectives passed the case from one shift to the next, making sure nothing got lost as people retired, moved, or took on new work. The case did not die. It just became colder, like a campfire that still had a few hot coals buried under ash. Then one day, long after the first cipher had been solved, another strange envelope arrived at a newspaper office. It had the same kind of sharp, leaning handwriting, the same kind of paper, and on the front of the letter, drawn in dark ink, was the symbol, a circle with a cross. Inside was another message and another code. The writer claimed again to be the Zodiac. He mocked the police for not solving his identity. He added more details from past crime scenes to prove he was the same person. And once again, he sent a new puzzle, a new string of symbols and secret writing, like he was inviting the entire state to play another game with him. The envelope was sealed in a plastic bag. Detectives gathered around as the letter was placed on a table under bright lights. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air vent and the click of a camera taking pictures for files. Detective Alvarez, who had just joined the team and had grown up hearing whispers about the Zodiac case, looked at the new code and felt a mix of dread and determination. "He's still out there," she said softly. "Or someone wants us to think he is." The others didn't answer right away. They just kept staring at the uneven lines of symbols, knowing the city was about to be pulled back into the old fear, and that puzzle solvers across the country would once again bend over their tables, trying to unlock the message of a person who refused to step into the light. This is where Chapter 1 ends, with a new letter, a fresh code, and a question hanging over everyone's heads. Is this the same Zodiac? And will this be the message that finally gives him away, or another trick that keeps him just out of reach? When you're ready, I'll continue with Chapter 2, following how detectives, codebreakers, and everyday people try to solve the new cipher, how suspects rose and fell, and why. Even with all these letters and codes, the Zodiac was never fully caught.